Before 2013, only 11 prosecutors in history had ever been killed in the line of duty. This case changed that number to 13. Prosecutors are aware of the risk that comes with the job, but I think the general public doesn't really think that a prosecutor's job is that risky. I remember one time I was working on a case where I was leaving the courthouse late at night by myself, and that particular case involved a defendant who was in a gang. And the gang members were all outside the courthouse cussing me and calling names, and I thought they could shoot me here, they could follow me home, and I was scared that night. But this case went beyond just being scared and threats. This case involved two very well-respected prosecutors who lost their lives, as well as an innocent bystander who was murdered in cold blood. This put prosecutors all over Texas and all over the country on red alert.
Yes, we've got a gentleman on Grove Street and Madison that just got shot.
I know. He got a shot in his face.
I am at the office that morning. I'm sitting at my desk, and I look out the window, and I see two detectives running out to the parking lot. So I called up to dispatch, and I asked, hey, what's going on? The dispatcher told me that they had just had a report of an attorney being shot outside the courthouse.
Come on, buddy. Take your breath.
Upon arrival, there were first responders there that were trying to render aid.
Come on, Mark.
The victim was Mark Hassey from the DA's office.
Come on, buddy. She just constantly shot to the face. To the face, boy, right here on the side.
We had already started kind of cordoning off the area, creating a crime scene. There were a few witnesses there, and there are officers already conducting searches for evidence.
We found out that a silver sedan had been broadcast as the suspect vehicle. So the focus was find this silver sedan. As we are driving through neighborhoods, I came across one of the ladies that worked in the DA's office, and she was getting out of her car. And I said, hey, there's been a shooting. And she looked at me and she's like, I know, it was Mark. And then she told me that he had died. It was just shock. There's just so many unknowns. We don't know why Mark was targeted, and we don't know who we're looking for other than a silver sedan. And so the schools are getting locked down, the courthouse is getting locked down. It was controlled chaos.
He was a good guy. He didn't deserve that. I met Mark Hassey back in the late 90s. I got a job with the district attorney's office in Dallas County. He was representing someone in a family violence case, but he had been a prosecutor in Dallas County before that for quite some time. He was kind of a nerdy guy. He would almost always have a crazy sweater on. And so they were one of those things that you look for. You see somebody walking down the hall wearing a crazy sweater, you know it was Mark Hassey.
Mark had no spouse. Mark had no kids. Mark had a brother a little older than Mark, and then Mark's mother. That was all the family he had. I was a detective for the sheriff's office when Mark came to work for the Kaufman County DA's office. There were 4 felony prosecutors. Mark was one of them. Working with Mark was an amazing experience. When he found out I had an interest in the law, he mentored me. He took the time to really delve into the cases with me.
As a prosecutor in Kaufman County, he really, really had a strong sense of justice. He was a warrior.
My phone blew up with prosecutor friends from North Texas, throughout the nation. This really rattled the prosecutorial community.
When prosecutors all across the country heard about Mark Hassey being shot as he walked to the courthouse, every one of us thought, it's got to be related to work. It's got to be somebody he's prosecuted before. It's got to be somebody he made mad because he went after him. The Kaufman County DA's office couldn't take this on. They couldn't be objective. So someone else had to look at this and decide who did it and can we make that case and prove it. So Kaufman County appointed special prosecutors from Dallas County.
We were asked very quickly if me and Toby would consider coming out there to help the investigation.
Bill and Toby were immediately called upon to be special prosecutors, so they were able to get to the crime scene while it was still fresh. That's probably a pretty rare thing to have happen.
So Mark would have parked right here with his truck, and he was facing out, got out of his door and started walking over the block to the courthouse. He gets up to the sidewalk, and halfway through this entry, that's when a silver gray car comes in. A handful of eyewitnesses saw different parts of the encounter, and they described a man dressed in black with a mask. And the man in black gets out and confronts him about right here. And eyewitnesses were the man in the body shop.
But that door's open, he was standing right there. You could see them shoving and Mark saying, "I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry." Mark Hesse shot 5 times.
And the final shot was like right there. And Mark drops, and that's the wound that primarily bleeds out on the parking deal.
This witness saw the shooter pull out another gun, start shooting in the air, probably to frighten everyone away.
You know, it's easy to get away with something in broad daylight if you scare everybody and keep their head down. And then the car flees down here, and our civilian's able to follow him for a few blocks before she loses. And she's on the phone with 911. There's a Kaufman patrol officer a few blocks that way working a burglary. Dash cam picks up the gunshots. He hears them, self-dispatches over here. Parks are about right there, so his dash cam is shooting this way, and you can see the last moments of Mark's life. We had no casings around here, so we're figuring he had to be a revolver, which means it's somebody that may be familiar with law enforcement because he doesn't want to leave spent shell casings. The DA, Mike McClellan, gave a press conference very quickly after Mark's murder. And I think all of us that were there or watched it were concerned because Mike was so angry. This hit him so personally that he basically issued a challenge to the murderer.
I hope that the people that did this are watching. We're going to find you. We're going to pull you out of whatever hole you're in and let the people of Kaufman County prosecute you to the fullest extent of the law.
We knew the killer would be watching somewhere. We were just hoping the killer wouldn't take it as a challenge. Mike was super concerned for the safety of his employees, especially as they went in and out of the courthouse on the town square. He would assign some of his police officers to kind of bodyguard people, walk them in and out. Everyone was extra skeptical of people that came through the metal detectors at the front door.
People from all over the state just started flooding in, rangers and troopers, federal agencies, FBI, DEA, ATF, probably 200 agents in Kaufman working this case at one time.
The fact that a prosecutor was gunned down in broad daylight on the steps of the courthouse, of course they're going to bring in everybody that they possibly can to get to the bottom of who did it.
What makes the murder of a prosecutor so different is the suspect pool. Other than the traditional motives where law enforcement is trained to look, we now have additional suspects, which is any case that Mark Hasse's ever prosecuted. So the clues could be buried in the courthouse. They could be in Mark's office. They could be in his files. We need to go back and reinvestigate Mark's cases.
Mark Hasse was a prosecutor for a very long time, and he was handling the highest profile, most serious cases that Kaufman County had. So it could take them years to get to the bottom of all those cases. The investigation had a lot more work to be done. In the months that followed, Kaufman County is still trying to figure out who killed Mark Hasse.
I was home with my family in Dallas looking forward to Easter Sunday, and I got a call from the police chief of Kaufman that said, "Bill, the sheriff wants you out here. Mike and Cynthia McClellan have been found dead in their home."
I hope that the people that did this are watching. We're going to find you. We're going to pull you out of whatever hole you're in.
The district attorney and his wife were killed, and I proceeded straight to the McClellan residence. I locked the scene down.
The immediate assumption was these murders were connected to Mark Hasse. Now we got to figure out what the connection is. We don't know who we're looking for. We don't know if there's other targets. We don't know who's next.
The killer said, "We will not be stopped."
And the black bag was this Grim Reaper mask.
And it had a pickle jar full of homemade napalm.
Even though he looks normal, he is a deadly psychopath. As rare as it is to have a prosecutor killed, to have two from the same office killed within 2 months is unprecedented. Mark Hassey's been killed 2 months earlier. This is his boss and his boss's wife. After Mark Hassey's murder, I wouldn't go anywhere without a gun. I was concerned for the safety of my family.
And I told my wife what was happening, and I gave her 2 guns and said, "If you don't know it's me coming through that door, get ready to use these guns," because we were freaked out.
The district attorney and his wife were killed, and we began the methodical process of handling a major crime scene. I didn't see any signs of forced entry, so the door must have been opened to a known party or opened because there was some type of trickery involved. I noticed that there was quite a bit of firearms-related evidence there. Cartridge cases. Based on just the visual survey, it would have been a semi-automatic rifle, .223 caliber. There was damage from bullet impacts to furniture, walls, as well as the 2 bodies of Mr. McClellan and his wife, and they were both shot multiple times.
McClellan crime scene, way too many rounds were fired just to kill 2 people. There were 20+ rounds fired. It seemed very personal that they probably knew the person that killed them. We were canvassing the neighborhood. We asked, did the neighbors hear the shots? We couldn't find anyone that heard it.
But there was a neighbor a few houses down, and they spotted a white car driving down and then driving back.
This white car is different than the gray sedan seen fleeing Mark Hassey's murder. At this point, the investigators were not sure what to make of that car, but they needed to track it down as soon as possible.
That day, we were all going to meet and go out, and then we got the call later that next day that they had been killed.
I was in shock. I even went so far as to say, okay, y'all, this hasn't really happened. And it wasn't until the funeral home, that it dawns on you that it did happen.
Mike was a fatherly figure in the office, and his wife, Cynthia, would always bring in cookies and baked goods to the office, and very motherly in her interactions with the office staff. When the McClellans were murdered, the enormity of it really hit me. I lost some friends.
The command post opened back up Easter Sunday. We had an anonymous Crime Stoppers tip line. It was web-based, and we got an online tip from someone claiming credit for the murders and said, I shot Mark Hassey, and I used a .38 and a .357. That's somebody that has some knowledge that hasn't been released publicly. So we had a pretty good idea that we were interacting with our actual killer.
The email said, do we have your attention? As a show of good faith, have one of the county judges resign by Friday, or the killings will continue. We will not be stopped.
What was really unique about this tip, it was somebody that was fairly sophisticated at that point with the internet. They were using an IP anonymizer.
That's the program for somebody to start masking their identity online. So it makes it more difficult to trace.
So we were not able to track down the person who wrote the tip. To me, the similarities with Mark Hassey and the McClellans were overkill. Mark Hassey's was shot 5 times with the revolver. Mike McClellan was shot 16 times. Cynthia 4 times with the rifle. And it looked personal. They have to be connected. We found out Mark Hassey and his boss, Mike McClellan, only tried one case together, and that was in 2012 when they tried Eric Williams. Eric Williams had been tried for the theft and burglary of computer monitors from the courthouse.
Eric Williams had actually been a commissioned police officer, and then he was elected justice of the peace in Kaufman.
Justices of the peace are pretty prevalent in the South. My dad was a JP, and believe it or not, they don't need to be lawyers because Daddy sure wasn't a lawyer. They're elected every 4 years, just like every other government official. They can marry people, but they also deal with traffic tickets, Class C misdemeanors, usually the things where all you have to do is pay a fine. That's what you go see the JP for.
Eric was accused of stealing from the courthouse. Dad approached him and said, hey, resign or I'm going to prosecute this.
He refused. Eric Williams is a very, very smart man, very high IQ. I think he thought he could beat it and went to trial and he got convicted.
The courthouse surveillance footage of a man stealing, seen here, was used in the criminal court case against former Kaufman County Justice of the Peace, Eric Williams, who was convicted in the theft of computer monitors.
You're a JP who's been prosecuted for any kind of theft. You can lose your license, you can lose your livelihood. That's going to devastate your life.
So we made the decision to try to do a knock and talk on Eric Williams to see if he's involved with the murders. We sent 2 officers over to his house, and in fact, when they knocked on the door and said, can we come in and talk with you? And the lawyer that Eric was, he actually said what he was thinking. He narrated his thoughts. I know I shouldn't, but yeah, guys, come on in.
Did you have anything to do with it? No, absolutely not. If you give us the weapons that you own, and look at your house, make sure there's no weapons there. I mean, I don't think that's asking a whole lot if you didn't do anything. But that's not going to stop it.
Eric let them in, and they saw pieces of AR rifles in the house.
The type of weapon used at the McClellan's murder. Since he was a convicted felon, he could not have any firearms.
So, based on that knock and talk, we were able to get probable cause to search his house. We went in the house. It looked like somebody that's into computers and is on the internet a lot. Law enforcement did a quick download of his computer searches. He was kind of doing surveillance on Hassey and the McClellans. He was running license plates that were connected with the addresses, neighbors' license plates, trying to get a pattern of life. This eagle-eyed investigator we have found a note in his kitchen. It said, this looks like a Crime Stoppers password. The Crime Stoppers tip line was web-based. The system itself is set up to be anonymous. However, the person that gives the tip is assigned a unique password. And when we tracked it back, that's how we knew it was Eric Williams that had sent the tips.
We didn't have enough for capital murder charges. So we had this terroristic threat charge that we had enough evidence to be able to lock up Eric.
Eric Williams' motive seemed like it was revenge-driven because of that trial in 2012. We hit pieces of AR rifles and his computer searches, but we didn't have cars and weapons. It's important, but I rented a storage unit for Eric Williams.
I thought, oh my God, it's actually happened. We're going to find something that's linked Eric Williams to those murders.
The command post personnel obtained information from a source that indicates he has rented a storage unit at the request of Eric Williams. So we obtain warrants so that we can enter that storage unit and make a search for evidence that might be related to the murders. There was a lot of stuff crammed into it, but in particular, we found a solid white Crown Vic. It looked like the prototypical law enforcement vehicle. We had received information in the neighborhood that there had been a white vehicle in front of the McClellan's home the morning of their murder. We found law enforcement related memorabilia. We found tons of firearms related evidence, some .38 caliber weapons, quite a bit of boxed ammunition. But what struck me is we found 223 caliber bullets, the same bullets that were fired at the crime scene.
In the storage shed, Eric Williams had ejected a live round into a plastic container, and the tool marks of the ejection site matched the 20 rounds found at the house. That was a smoking gun.
We've got enough now to move forward with capital murder charges. Just the nature of these murders, there's so many moving parts that it was pretty easy for us to believe there had to be more than one person involved. Is there somebody we're missing? People or persons that are guilty of this that haven't hit our radar, because the eyewitnesses from the Hassey murder saw a second person in the car and the shooter getting in the passenger side. So as we're looking at Eric Williams, we're obviously getting information about his wife, Kim Williams. And what we heard from the locals was Kim has bad arthritis. She hardly leaves the house. She takes lots of medicine. We asked Kim Williams to come down to the sheriff's office. She came down voluntarily, and as a part of that, she voluntarily decided to talk to law enforcement. She was talked to by multiple different officers for a long number of hours. Finally, she broke down and gave us that she and Eric were the killers. And that she was the driver on both murders. And Eric Williams actually pulled the trigger himself. Kim Williams told us on the McClellan murders that Eric Williams was dressed as a police officer. And that was his plan, to come up as kind of a SWAT officer, knock on the door and say, there's a shooter in the area, let us in, we're here to protect you. And once she decided to finally tell the truth that she and Eric were involved in these murders, she kind of dropped her head and said, you wouldn't understand. And basically told us that Eric's anger at Mark and Mike for the conviction, she shared that anger. This was a pure revenge killing against the people that had prosecuted them.
Because two Kaufman County prosecutors were murdered, that entire office can't handle this case. They're conflicted out for all kinds of reasons. You're going to have to call in somebody new who's an outsider. And so Bill and Toby were appointed as special prosecutors for Kaufman County. It's a unique position because it's not your home territory, and you have to learn as quickly as possible to do things their way, at the same time bringing all of the knowledge and experience that got you appointed as a special prosecutor in the first place.
We wanted more information from Kim Williams against Eric Williams. Toby and I talked extensively. You never really trust an accomplice unless you can corroborate them.
They had to tread very lightly in figuring out how to handle her, how to deal with her, and how to use her as a potential witness.
We didn't have the murder weapon from the Mark Hassey murder and from the McClellan murders. So when we talked to Kim, she said Eric Williams threw the guns from the Hassey murder into Lake Tawakoni.
So DPS brought in their dive team.
The lake they were searching was just zero visibility. So it's like fingertip searches by feel, kind of in chocolate milk. They were out there probably 30 days total, spread over almost a year of searching. We were hours away from abandoning the search. We're never going to find anything when we got the phone call that the dive team had found guns and a phone. When the guns and the phone came up out of Lake Tawakoni, they were in a black bag. And we didn't think much of the black bag until we dried it out. And the black bag was this Grim Reaper mask. So it had the guns that were used to kill Mark Hassey contained in the killer's mask.
Eric Williams wanted his face disguised from the witnesses, but he also wanted Mark Hassey to be able to recognize exactly who was about to kill him. And that's when witnesses heard Hassey say, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, right before he was shot by Eric Williams.
So we knew Kim Williams was at least telling us the truth because everything she told us was corroborated with physical evidence.
Bill and Toby decided to try Eric and Kim Williams separately. When you are trying Eric Williams, from the beginning it's pretty apparent you're going to need to seek the death penalty because he killed two prosecutors. And his wife is also involved, but as a lesser player, and you're not going to seek the death penalty on her. If you're not going to seek death on both of them, they are never going to be tried together. Their trials are always going to be separate.
We had 3 murders and 2 separate incidents. So we put a lot of thought and we went to prosecute the McClellan murders first. Eric Williams' beef was with Mark and Mike. He shot Mark in public by himself. He could have done the same thing to Mike. Instead, he chose to kill Mike at home, knowing Cynthia would be a witness. There was absolutely no reason for Cynthia McClellan to die. So we wanted to try that case first because it was a very strong case for the death penalty.
They charged him with capital murder because they broke into the house. Burglary plus murder equals capital murder. With Mark Hassey, you have to prove the whole retaliation part of it to charge him with capital murder, which is another layer that you have to prove. With the McClellans, you didn't have to even go into that.
There's circumstantial evidence, forensic evidence, fingerprint evidence, ballistic evidence, and finally you will hear a confession this man made to the murders. He sent an email into law enforcement claiming credit for the murders, thinking he would remain anonymous. Well, he was wrong.
When I did the initial opening statement and I termed that email into Crime Stoppers a confession, he got very agitated at the table and was trying to stare me down. But that's because he's a psychopath with a huge ego that thinks he's smarter and he can get himself out of any situation.
Because he'd gotten away with 3 murders. During the trial. But I went very methodically through the evidence, and the 2 key points were the emails about Mark Hassey's murder, where he said the killings will continue. We knew it came from Eric Williams because he left that password for the tip line. The other was the physical evidence found in the storage shed and at the McClellan house.
What conclusions were you able to draw after examining that live cartridge?
That the marks on the case of this cartridge indicate that it was cycled in the same firearm that fired all of the cartridge cases recovered from the crime scene.
We didn't find the actual murder weapon, but it was as good as finding the murder weapon.
We didn't call him Kim Williams because anytime you call an accomplice or a co-defendant in front of a jury, it's an easy cross for a defense lawyer to say Kim Williams was the shooter and not the driver. And we just didn't want to open up that can of worms. We were blessed with so much circumstantial evidence. I asked the jury to consider this. If it's not Eric Williams, then who would it be? No one else fits. No one else has motive. No one else is the common denominator. We felt our case was strong. But anytime you're in front of a jury, you can get somebody that just doesn't want to deliberate. You can get a hung jury 11-1. So something can still go wrong. But the defense in this case was so hamstrung, most of the witnesses were not cross-examined. So they kind of saved their defense fireworks for the closing argument.
Not one fingerprint, not one piece of DNA.
There's no burden on the defense to put on a single witness. The whole burden is on the state of Texas to prove the case.
There is no known murder weapon in this case. That is the core of the state's indictment, that Eric Williams went into the home and shot Cynthia McClellan.
When you have a case like this where the evidence is so strong and so compelling, the only argument you usually are going to be able to make is reasonable doubt. Can a jury say, based on this evidence, beyond a reasonable doubt, Eric Williams is the person who killed the McClellans?
It's like a net. You piece it all together, and it tracks Eric Williams. We have proven this case beyond a reasonable doubt, and we'll ask you for that verdict.
Right before the verdict came back, Eric Williams looked very, very confident. He sat over there with a smirk on his face the entire trial.
We, the jury, unanimously find the defendant, Eric Lyle Williams, guilty of capital murder as charged in the indictment. You may be seated.
And I think when he heard that the jury found him guilty, it just kind of deflated him. I think he was so delusional, he thought he was going to walk away.
The guilty verdict was a relief. There was a sense of comfort, like, okay.
It was the next phase. That was the nerve-wracking part of it all, is whether he was going to get the death penalty or not.
The challenge here for Bill and Toby was, would a jury give Eric Williams the death penalty? Because you're talking about not your usual capital murder defendant. He was an elected official. He was a justice of the peace. He was law enforcement. He worked for the people of Kaufman County for a number of years, and everybody thought he was a good guy. So are you going to give somebody like that the death penalty, or is life without parole a good enough punishment? Bill and Toby have to prove, in order to get the death penalty in this case, two things: that Eric Williams is a future threat to society, and is there anything in his life that mitigates or makes you think that, okay, because of that circumstance in his life, a life sentence is good enough, that's appropriate enough to deserve that over the death penalty?
Eric Williams was a Mensa member, so they couldn't say he was mentally challenged in any way. He was raised by two parents in a nice home out in the country. He's given every chance in the world. You know, he had a good job as a justice of the peace. So really, what was the mitigation going to be?
Eric Williams looks like every man. And in fact, we made it very clear to the jury that even though he looks normal, he is a deadly psychopath. We actually put on the contents of that storage unit and his massive gun and tactical fantasy collection, just so the jurors could get a glimpse into the mind of Eric Williams. He wasn't this successful lawyer, judge. He was really a violent, dangerous person, and whenever anything went wrong in his life, people were going to pay. Plus, in the punishment phase, we can put in past crimes, bad acts, anything we think might be relevant to helping the jurors.
Take your seats at the stand.
We were able to track down a girlfriend from 1995.
And he said, I have a gun. I have nothing to lose.
Take your seats at the stand.
During the punishment phase of the trial, the prosecutors called Janice Gray to the stand to talk about an incident that happened to her back in 1995 after she and Eric Williams broke up.
We went to I don't know, I guess it was a sports bar type. We had a small conversation about me wanting, to have another relationship. It wasn't anything big. And he said, well, I have a gun. If you walk away, I'll use it. I have nothing to lose. I was maybe shocked, maybe scared. I just stood there.
What Bill and Toby were trying to do is show with Janice Gray this was just another step in a line of violence that Eric Williams committed. It didn't just begin and end with what happened to Mark Hassey and the McClellans. It started way before that. And that Bill and Toby are showing the jury, you think you know him because he was our Justice of the Peace in Kaufman County. You don't know him at all.
And then we called Kim Williams to the witness stand.
The defense was nervous. They didn't know when we were going to call Kim Williams. You could see the defense lawyers like, is she ever going to come? Because they didn't want her.
Are you guilty of these capital murders?
Yes, I am.
Do we have any deal?
No, we do not.
Did you pull the trigger in these murders?
No, I did not.
Who did?
Eric Williams. He was mad at Mark Hassey. He was mad at Mr. McClellan.
Who did he bear the most animosity toward?
Mark Hassey. Because he prosecuted him.
What was to be your role in the murders?
He wanted me to drive. I so believed in Eric and everything that he told me. His anger was my anger.
I think her testimony was just ice cold. How they plotted this revenge, they planned it.
One of the things that was so compelling and cold was how the night before they were going to murder the McClellans, Eric would model his different law enforcement uniforms. It was like a runway. He would come in and change out. What do you think of this or this one? And his plan was to talk his way in. He was going to say, hey, there's an emergency, you're in danger, I need to come in.
Once he goes into the McClellan home, what happens next?
I hear shots.
How many?
A lot.
What did he tell you about killing Cynthia McClellan?
That she had to die because she would be there as a witness, and he described it as collateral damage.
Kim provided a real glimpse into the sickness that was their life together. She talked about how they went to celebrate after a murder.
How do you and Eric spend the rest of the day, the Saturday before Easter Sunday?
Cooking out.
Were y'all celebrating with steaks?
That's correct.
What was the mood like at the cookout?
Happy. Joyous.
The big piece that we really needed for her in a death penalty trial, we had heard about a potential hit list. And I think in our mind, we were thinking maybe it was written down. When we talked to Kim, she said, no, it wasn't written down. It was just a list that we talked about. In order to get the death penalty, we needed that hit list in to prove that Eric Williams was a future danger.
After the McClellans were killed, were there more on the hit list?
Yes.
Who was that?
Early Wiley.
And who else?
Judge Ashworth.
They were next to be killed by Eric Williams?
Yes.
Lots of items were recovered from that storage shed. And one strange item was a backpack, and it had a crossbow and had a pickle jar full of some weird liquid. They tested it, and it was homemade napalm. That was going to be very compelling evidence for the penalty phase.
After the McClellans died, who was going to be next?
Judge Ashworth.
Why did he tell you he wanted to kill Judge Ashworth?
He told me that Judge Ashworth was prissy, a prima donna. He got mad all the time at Eric.
Where was the murder supposed to take place?
At his home.
With the crossbow?
That's correct.
What was the napalm for?
I guess to drive in an extra kind of FU. He was going to bore a hole in his stomach and pour it in.
Why are you cooperating with law enforcement? Why are you here testifying against your husband?
Because those families deserve this, and I want to give it to them.
At the conclusion of final argument, the jury is sent out to deliberate, and after the jury deliberated for just a little bit, the judge sent the jury home, so everybody in the courtroom went home wondering what the verdict was going to be.
Anytime you've got a jury out and they go home for the night, that's a long night for the lawyers involved, no matter what side you're on. So maybe started second guessing ourselves, because if we don't give him the death penalty, he's going to keep killing. He's smart enough to be a danger behind bars, too. When we came back the next day, almost immediately they had a verdict.
Mr. Williams, the jury having found you guilty of the offense of capital murder in this court to carry out the sentence of death.
Was death. I think it was just an overwhelming sense of relief. Lawyers don't high-five after big verdicts. The community didn't high-five on this case. It was just relief that maybe we can try to get back to our normal life.
It's not it makes everything better kind of feeling once they came back with the death sentence. People talk about it being a closure. There is no closure.
That's not going to bring Dad back. It's not going to bring Cynthia back. It's not going to bring Mark Hassey back. You're still dealing with life without them. We were proud in the Kaufman County Sheriff's Office, and Bill and Toby both did a great job. We couldn't have handpicked anybody better to stand up there and be the prosecutors. Those guys were top notch.
After Eric Williams' conviction and death sentence, we sat down with all the family members involved in law enforcement, and we got feedback from everyone involved. Of course, in the run-up to Eric's trial, everyone wanted the death penalty for Kim Williams, including the families. But they were present in the courtroom for Kim's testimony and saw how devastating it was and what a huge role it played in the death penalty for Eric Williams, that they actually had a little bit of mercy and forgiveness in their heart. We ultimately let her plead guilty to 40 years behind bars. So that's the sentence she's currently serving.
I never tried a death penalty case where I knew the victims.
This was the first time that I felt pursuing my passion, prosecuting murder cases, would somehow jeopardize my loved ones and my family.
It was very personal in that way. And also, you felt like you were fighting for the criminal justice system. If you're going to make lawyers targets, then you will have to pay for it.
Mike and Mark lost their lives because of their jobs. And I know we don't typically think of line of duty deaths involving prosecutors, but that's because they're so rare. I do consider it a line of duty death, and I'm glad their service is kind of honored in that way.
I want people to realize and never forget the victims. The name of the person that committed these murders will be in the history books forever. But the 3 people that he killed were wonderful people, and I want their memories to be carried on.
Every day of their lives, they did stuff together. There wasn't a time that he wasn't there and she wasn't there. They were always together doing something.
I hope people remember the determination of our father and how he didn't quit and how he was bullheaded, but he loved everybody.
Mark Hasse stood up for what he believed in, and he paid the price for it. The man who would bring justice for other victims had justice brought for him.
When you take your oath, your job is, as a prosecutor, to seek justice. People don't really think of the prosecutors being the one who keeps the streets safe, but ultimately, if you do your job right, that is what you're doing. When you hear about the elected DA and his main assistant being murdered in Kaufman County, that was a huge reminder to all of us that it's a risky job. When you count cases that you work on, you've helped investigate.
So she falls just like this?
You prosecuted.
Where were most of the wounds concentrated on the body of Jeffrey Wright?
We've seen some horrible things, but all those cases, what was done to Tanisha, I don't think I've ever seen another one like that. This case revealed the depths of human darkness, pure evil on earth. And the worst part about it was that it wasn't random. It was someone she knew. And her family, we watched them go through it because they thought nobody cared. Awful.
Even if she is dead, let me know so I can go and get her and bring her home.
To tell a mom their baby was dead, I can still see her face.
Oh, this is my favorite. 4-part harmony. 4-part harmony. 4-part for life. Yes. I met Tanisha in the 5th grade. We were just instant friends. We were in like the varsity choir in high school.
She was Mighty Woman. She was small, but her voice had some power. You knew not to play with her.
Yeah. And this was like the time when Destiny's Child was coming up. So we're from Houston. They're singing. We're like, okay, it's for, we can do what they're doing.
Group,
so like,
yes.
We were ready to be the next group. It was really fun.
Tanisha had a lot of things to look forward to in life because of all the different talents that she had. She was very smart. She loved school, loved to sing, and she loved to smile and make others smile.
Tanisha was very driven. Academics were #1. And our junior year, she won a $40,000 scholarship, and she was able to go to Texas A&M. We were sad we were going to leave each other, but we knew we'll be back. It's time to go change the world.
Yeah.
Tanisha did the top 3% of her class, cum laude, and that's how she was getting into college. She was so looking forward to go to A&M. She had a bright future, and I just looked forward to seeing it.
It's spring break 2007. We were planning to do something on the weekend together.
The last time I talked to her was on Wednesday.
But we didn't get a response on Thursday.
On Friday, Tanisha's still not answering her phone. Like, that just didn't make sense. She's an over-communicator. She would not go off on her own without letting somebody know where she went. Clearly, something was wrong.
My mom was like, I think I should call the cops. I was like, yeah, let's call the cops. And what they did was tell my mom, call back in a few days. She's probably just on spring break and she just wants some time away from her family. And we kept telling them, no, that's not Tanisha. She's the opposite of that.
I was bothered that the police didn't take it seriously.
She's not a troubled teen. We felt like there needed to be some kind of sense of urgency.
We're like, we need to find her now.
Something needs to be done.
Something is up.
Yeah.
Houston, the city is huge. Covering crime, I was fascinated with missing people because there were just so many, but not all of them were newsworthy. A lot of them were runaways. And so the police do say, wait a couple of days.
I think that's an old rule. When you hear that wait 48 to 72 hours, it's because you don't have the resources to throw at it right away. And a lot of times that does solve the problem because they do come home. But you can appreciate how a family feels because to them it's the most important thing in the world. So I'm sure families are always frustrated at the way they think no one is responding properly.
On Friday, we were still calling her phone. Saturday came, nothing. Sunday came and said, okay, we need people out there searching. Like, we were just trying to figure out the next steps.
The cops weren't doing anything, and we know time is of the essence. My mom, my entire family, we're all into crime shows. So we know after the first 24, 48 hours, there's a problem, something's wrong.
Hospitals are getting called, even the jail getting called, any friends or family members, any college mates. And then Monday morning, Tanisha doesn't show up to her college classes. She's not at Texas A&M. The alarms are really firing off.
Tanisha's family held a vigil on that Monday after she went missing, and they held it at the church.
Thankfully, the community came out, but now it's on the police. So now it's their job to find her.
Working in missing persons, at any one time on my desk, there'd be between 60 and 100 cases open. That particular morning, I was contacted by my supervisor who said, we got a missing persons on the northwest side of Harris County, and there's a lot of people at a Lutheran church passing out flyers. I need you to go out there and see what's what. When I pulled up to the parking lot, several people approached me. They had a lot of things that they wanted the law enforcement to do because they have, over the 3 or 4 days prior to me getting there, doing their own investigation. I'm out talking to Tanisha's cousin. She said she'd been trying to call Timothy Shepard, Tanisha's ex-boyfriend. According to them, Tanisha was last seen on Thursday at his apartment that's actually down the street from the church. First thing I do is I go to the apartment complex. I knock, nobody was home. I'd speak to the manager. She goes, oh my goodness, there was a fire there 2 days ago. Not only was there a fire, talked to another neighbor. They tell me that they heard shots, gunshots, a couple of nights ago in the woods close to that apartment. So talking to the fireman about the fire is put on the back burner until I can figure out what's in the woods. I call a couple of K-9 deputies. When they get there, we walk across the street from the apartment complex in a woody area. Deputies were saying, oh yeah, there's something dead out there. They use cadaver dogs and they can smell that scent. So we get into the wood line about 20 feet and we smell death.
He told me that he was talking to the suspect. Suspect? That's interesting.
My two main goals were, one, find what happened to Tanisha Stewart. Two, help protect Timothy Shepard from cops who may be intimidating this brother to give them something he does not have.
Tanisha's family said she was last seen with her ex-boyfriend, Timothy Shepard. The neighbors at his apartment tell me that they heard gunshots a couple of nights ago across the street from the apartment complex. As a missing persons investigator,
My goal is to always find them alive, but the canine just alerted on the smell. And about 150 yards into the woods, they found a dead animal. It's relief that it's not her, so now I need to keep searching.
Tanisha met Timothy Shepard working at a pizza restaurant. We found out later on that there was an 8-year age difference between the two of them. You know, I didn't like that part. But Tanisha was so drawn to him, and not just Tanisha, my younger siblings and my mom as well. My mom accepted him as another son into the family.
Tanisha and Tim were still together as Tanisha was going to Texas A&M.
They were trying to make the long-distance relationship work, but she was like, I'm not letting nothing stop me, especially after the scholarship. So that's when they just kind of like took the break.
In college, Tanisha met a new guy. She really liked him. He was a breath of fresh air. He made her laugh. He was her age.
She was still in love with Tim, but she just knew she wanted better. Like, she was learning, okay, I just want to have fun and do what I want to do, and that's what she was really enjoying.
Maybe she was having a romantic weekend, but she still would respond to your phone call or message at some point.
You have a young lady who's gone missing, and you want to figure out where she is. You've already talked to her girlfriends. The most important people to talk to next are going to be any men she's involved with, and talk to them about what they know when they saw her last. You want to pick their brains about everything there is to know about Tanisha to try and figure out where she is.
The smell in the woods turned out to be nothing, so I go back to the church. I go to my car and I start making phone calls to Ponderosa, which is a volunteer fire department here in Harris County. Talked to one of the firemen that made the scene, Timothy Shepard's apartment. Firemen and policemen, we have this relationship where we help each other all the time, so he was just telling me what happened. He said, when we get there, it was bad smoke all around the complex, but Timothy Shepard wouldn't open the door. But I mean, if something's on fire, you know you're going to open the door. So they beat and beat and beat. And he said that there was a deputy showed up in case they need, scene security while they're fighting the fire. And he said, deputy finally told him to open the door, and he opened the door. They went to the patio, put the fires out. And I said, so what was cooking? He goes, just meat. The fireman tells me they searched the apartment. He goes, when they got into the bathroom, he noticed in the bathtub that there was a lot of meat that he was barbecuing covered in ice. And I was like, what kind of meat are you talking about? I mean, that's unusual for somebody to fill the bathtub up with meat. Was it ribs, chicken? He goes, it's hard to say, but it wasn't sausage, maybe ribs. Did you ask him what kind of meat it was or what he's doing? He goes, no, we just put the fire out and left. It didn't leave me with a final answer that it was just a fire. It left me with more questions than I had when I got there. But at that point, Tanisha's cousin comes up to me in a panic. She's got a phone she's holding up, and she goes, it's him. It's Tim on the phone. So I took the phone and talked to him. I said, where are you at right now? He goes, I'll tell you what, I'll just come to where you are. You gonna come to the church where I'm at right now? He goes, yeah. While I'm waiting. So he gets out of the car, calmly walks up to me like, I'm Timothy. I said, there's too many people out here, man. Just hop in the back seat of my car. I just wanted to get him secured in my car. It wasn't short, maybe 5-10 minutes before homicide got there. Off they went to homicide division to interview him.
My name is Sidney Miller. I'm a Harris County Sheriff's Office homicide investigator. I've been with the Sheriff's Office for 32 years. I've been in homicide for 22 years. In homicide, it's a dedicated job. It's a calling for a lot of people. In my 22-year career, robberies and things like that, those are things that can be replaced. Can't replace a life. This was a 19-year-old kid that had been missing, and I ended up interviewing Timothy Shepard. He was very cooperative. He did see Tanisha on March 15th. He did admit to picking her up about 4 or 5 in the morning. As they're driving back to his apartment, she gets a phone call from the new guy that she had met from college. Timothy asked her, well, why is he calling you this time in the morning? And she just kind of shrugged him off. He claimed that he confronted Tanisha again. She got upset, and she just left the apartment on her own. And that was the last time he saw her. We had nothing to say this was a lie. But so when we found out she had left on foot, that just opened up another possibility of, could she have been abducted?
We live in Houston, Harris County. Horrible crimes happen there, and they happen sometimes randomly, and they are committed by strangers. So it could be a stranger, it could be random, but the odds of that are a lot less than it being somebody that she knew.
I talked to her before she was gonna meet Tim. And I was like, okay, what about Tim? He's supposed to be done, but she's like, well, I'm just ending it before I go back to school. It's just I want to make peace with it and be through. I'm thinking, Tanisha doesn't walk anywhere. Maybe Tim drove her somewhere and left her, and she's without a phone, and she can't get in touch with anybody.
While Shepard is at our offices to give us a statement, he had given written consent for us to go and look into his apartment. Tanisha had been missing for 5 days. When I first opened the door, there was this smell of fresh paint. I noticed that the carpeting looked like bleach stains. I've been doing this long enough to know that that's an indication that someone is probably trying to hide something. As you walk further into the apartment, there was a bathroom, looked like it had just been recently cleaned. Ammonia bottles, bleach, and things like that. And there next to the tub, looked like it had been mopped. This was really strange, and to me it was obviously a clue. When I got to Timothy Shepard's apartment, we found a lot of things that looked suspicious. Our crime scene CSU person did some swabbing for DNA that we submitted for analysis, but there wasn't enough to hold him on or accuse him of anything. We didn't want to jump the gun. This was early on in the investigation, and we knew we had a lot of people to talk to and some more investigating to do, so Shepard was free to leave. I started canvassing Shepard's apartment complex. Old-fashioned police work. You know, you're knocking on doors and talking to people. One of Shepard's neighbors talked about hearing some type of pounding, and he heard the garbage disposal just constantly running. A friend of Shepard's who lived downstairs had confronted Shepard about him barbecuing and had asked for some barbecue, and then Shepard wouldn't give him any barbecue, and he just thought that that was strange. We speak to several neighbors about the smell. One talked about how it smelled like a dead possum. Something wasn't quite right about it. But at this point, I can't talk to Tanisha's family and explain to them things that we found inside the apartment. We still had an investigation going.
I think what people don't realize is that there's a lot going on behind the scenes. And law enforcement doesn't always go out talking about all of it for lots of different reasons. So you have a family that doesn't know everything yet, and the lack of communication, sometimes for a good reason. You don't ever want to put your whole case out there. There's nothing to be gained by that.
Nobody have seen or heard from her. Something's going on. Something is wrong. We're so many days out. How can I get more people involved to look for my sister? And then I thought, Quanell X is always on the news.
We'd see him on TV representing families, any type of social injustice, to be a voice for those who aren't always heard.
Something's happened to a family member, whatever it is, I know he loves the publicity, he gets camera time.
Quanell X typically has his ear to the community, whether it's police brutality, whether it's police are looking for somebody. A lot of people don't trust investigations, and they need someone to reach out to.
I got a phone call from Tanisha Stewart's sister saying, Quanell, law enforcement is not telling us nothing. If anybody can find my sister, it's you. But Timothy Shepard's cousin called me too, saying, my cousin needs your help. He put him on the phone, said, brother, where are you? He told me at the apartment. My two main goals were, one, find what happened to Tanisha Stewart. Two, help protect Timothy Shepard from cops who may be overzealous, may be racist, and may be intimidating this brother to give them something he does not have.
Quanell X wasn't a fan of law enforcement. And every time I saw him on the news, he was always slamming us and criticizing us. And from all that I heard him say, we could never do anything right.
I've never been seen as a friend of law enforcement. At times, it could be cordial, but it's always tension there because there's no trust.
Quanell was walking two paths. On one hand, wanted to make sure Timothy Shepard was getting all of his rights, and on the other hand, he appreciated this was a wonderful black female that had a family that needed his help too. I remember thinking, how are you going to walk this plank here?
Quanell showed up the next day, and we both went over to Timothy's apartment. I was going to go up there with him. He was like, no, stay here. Let me talk to him one-on-one. Let me do my thing.
Walked up to him, how you doing, brother? Embraced him. I said, brother, you all right? And he said, no, not really. Brother, did they harm you? I said, I know law enforcement had you in their custody for a while. He said, no. They just kept trying to get me to confess. We go into the apartment. I could see fingerprint dust residue on the walls, and looked like law enforcement had been in there dusting and investigating the apartment. And I could see the luminol that they had been using in the bathroom. There was luminol stains everywhere in the bathroom. He started sweating. And I said, brother, tell me the truth. There was luminol stains everywhere in the bathroom. I said, brother, tell me the truth. Do you know what happened to this girl? And he went. And that's when I knew.
Quanell came back down. I mean, it looked like he had saw a ghost. I'm like, okay, Timothy said something. And he was like, he did confess. Your sister is gone. It's not supposed to be this way. We had come so far. It's not supposed to end like this. We worked too hard to overcome for it to end like this. What was all that work for? We let evil in, and that's what happens. She deserved more.
And I took my cell phone and I started calling law enforcement first because we had such a volatile relationship.
And he told me to meet him at a certain intersection, and he told me that he was talking to the suspect. Suspect? That's interesting.
I said, Jeff, who's the lead investigator? Get them to the apartment complex immediately. Get them here.
Quanell's talking to Shepard. He indicated he wanted to show us where Tanisha's body was. I just felt dejected because when you're talking about bodies, that don't mean that they're alive. We end up going over to an apartment complex on Ella Boulevard called the Polo Club. It's 3 to 4 miles from where Shepard lives.
We followed behind Quanell X and Timothy Shepard because I knew he killed her. He's going to take her where he put her body.
Eventually, we pull over. There was a dumpster, and the suspect got out. Quanell put his arm around the suspect.
He was very, very emotional. I kept saying, brother, it's going to be all right. She can't rest, brother, until you bring closure to this. He said, that's where I put her.
He's pointing towards the dumpster.
And I thought, oh my gosh, this is where he dumped her body.
We all walk over towards the dumpster at the same time. We look inside. It's empty.
She's not in there.
At that point, I instantly Mirandized him, put him in handcuffs.
The trash had already been picked up. Her body most likely was at the landfill.
Yes, she's gone. Yes, we're hurting about that. But there's a different pain that you feel when your loved one is killed and you don't have a body to bury. It's still an open wound.
After Shepard was Mirandized, we had made arrangements to have him transported to our homicide office. Quanell had arranged for him to have a lawyer present.
I had my own lawyers meet me there for a reason. I wanted to make sure that he would be protected, and I just didn't trust the cops.
Quanell wasn't just an activist anymore. He's now a witness. There was a conflict of interest there at that point.
I got a call at night asking me to come down to Lockwood, where the homicide was, to mediate between Timothy Shepard, Quanell X, homicide, and the two lawyers that were coming down to Lockwood to represent Timothy Shepard, when we all realized that they were also Quanell X's lawyers, so they can't be both. Quanell X became a fact witness to the specifics of what Timothy Shepard had to say about what happened. He became a witness for the prosecution, which I'm pretty sure he never anticipated happening.
Kelly Siegler felt there was enough probable cause to charge Timothy Shepard. In the interview room, he said, I want to give you my statement. I said, well, you've asked for a lawyer. At this point, I can't talk to you. He said, well, I want to talk to you without a lawyer present.
He just told me, man, you just tell the truth. Clear your conscience. And I left.
This is your opportunity to tell your side of the story.
So that night on the 12th, she spent the night at my house.
Shepard tells me about 4 a.m, Tanisha, she gets a phone call from this new guy that she had been dating from college.
We was always together. She always stayed at my house until she went back out to college.
He tries to address this new guy that she had met again, and that's when the argument ensued.
And the knife on my hand table, she picked it up. She swung it.
And then he took his right hand and he put it around her throat. And he said he just started squeezing.
That's when I just snapped and I know I had to choke her.
Next thing he knows, she's on the floor, he's leaning over, and she's not breathing. When I was talking to him, it was just this look that he had. He was reliving this whole thing all over again. He said he thought about how the police could track him, so now he wants to cover his tracks.
And then you drove to the Polo Club on Ella? You got one? And you placed inside the trash dumps?
Being totally true, I still had my doubts about everything. Something just didn't feel quite right about it. You don't get 100% confessions from people. We got this 80-20 rule. 80% of it's true and the other 20 is not. Something that could potentially be worse. We found out that there was a landfill in the southern part of Harris County that dumpster would have been dumped there.
The dump is over 500 acres. They could search for months and might not find anything.
What do you mean that you're not going to search for my sister's body in the landfill and that it costs too much money? Would it cost too much if there was your daughter out there? What most African-American women feel, we're the least respected and the least protected.
There's always that comparison, you know. What if she were white? What if she came from a more affluent neighborhood? Would the police or the Harris County investigators act differently?
If it was my son or daughter that was missing, you know, I wouldn't care what law enforcement was doing. It still wouldn't be fast enough for me. But as an investigator, you have to learn to tune that stuff out and do your job. We still hadn't found Tanisha. We still hadn't found her body. So we still had to do some more investigating to proof up our case. We go back out to Shepard's apartment, and one of the investigators sees what looks like charred bone on the ground of the apartment below Shepard's. Also, we see what looks like burnt hair. And then we checked the garbage disposal. We found charred items, bones, teeth, and the enamel that was found inside the garbage disposal was consistent with the DNA from Tanisha. We have evidence to believe that she was cut up, dismembered, and burned.
I'm the one that had to go tell Tanisha's mom why there didn't need to be a landfill search. And I was in that apartment that day with 20 people and Quanell X, a room full of very angry people, and I'll never forget her mom sitting on the couch that day with a bunch of strong men standing around her. And I explained to her that we knew she wasn't in the landfill because we knew that she was dismembered and cut up inside Timothy's apartment. And her mom looked up at me and said, "Miss Kelly, are you telling me my baby's never coming home?" And I said, "Yes, ma'am, I am." So tell them, Mom, their baby was dead. I mean, I walked out by myself and got in the car and drove away crying. Just thinking, how do they survive this?
Not only are we grieving, it was the way that she was killed. How could you date somebody and all of a sudden you're cutting her up in the bathtub like it's nothing? It's not a human. That's so demonic. That's like an evil spirit. No, you're not going to get away with this.
Timothy Shepard was charged with murder, so you're looking at a life sentence for your maximum punishment. When we filed the charges, the case could land in one of 22 different district courts, and it landed in the court where Marie Prim was the chief prosecutor assigned to the court, so it technically became her case. Marie Prim was one of the best chiefs that we had. She was very, very experienced. She was a nerd like me. I knew she was going to be prepared. I knew the family was going to love her. Timothy was represented by Chip Lewis, a very successful, well-known defense lawyer. As a prosecutor, you better have all your I's dotted and all your T's crossed if he's going to be the defense lawyer that you're looking at across the courtroom.
I view myself solely as a mercenary. I am hired to provide the best defense that money can buy.
Chip isn't cheap. Later, I found out that Timothy Shepard's sister paid for Chip.
Chip Lewis had just been involved in the Robert Durst case in Galveston.
The jury find the defendant, Robert Durst, not guilty.
Somehow, they had made the jury believe that the dismembering of the body did not matter.
I do not need to like these criminals, but I will do the best job anybody can if my financial requirements are met. To throw out that confession with all the brouhaha, there was a natural foundation there from which to draw that this was an involuntary statement. He was denied counsel, etc.
There was a pretrial hearing, and Chip fought just as hard to try and get the statement thrown out, because in his mind, if he could get that statement thrown out, what a huge win for him as a defense lawyer. The only way to get it thrown out was to legally make the judge believe that it was coerced or he didn't get all of his rights read to him.
The impact of getting the statement excluded could have led to the suppression of more evidence, such as a search warrant for the house and the discovery of the remains, making the state's task of convicting him of the murder at all quite difficult.
Because it may have impacted the search warrant to go back inside the apartment, I could not let that happen. I fought, and the law was on our side. The judge denied their motion to suppress.
The judge followed the law, but As I said, you got to do what you got to do to preserve the client's rights and give them the best defense money can buy. So forward went the trial.
We began the trial by setting up the relationship between Timothy Shepard and Tanisha Stewart. He had been physically violent with her. She had shared that with her roommates at Texas A&M. The roommate gave us a bigger picture of what was going on. She said that Tanisha was having a very difficult time with Tim, that they were supposed to have been broken up, but that Tim would not leave her alone. He would even come up to A&M. He would try to get in her dorm room. He would find her and basically make her life miserable.
She would keep a lot of things from me because I'm the older sister. I'm going to call for backup. It's going to be a problem. I understand the situation that she was in. Having his hands around your throat, that's not a normal relationship. That's considered domestic violence, and it doesn't get better, it gets worse. She really thought that, I can break it off with him, we could just be friends, and I could go on the way to college and live my life. No.
Building up their past history was important for the jury to recognize, and it certainly showed me who Timothy Shepard was. He was a cold, callous person.
There was absolutely no evidence that Tanisha Stewart had been anything but a remarkable young lady and had no blemishes in her past that we could anyway exploit to create impression to the jury that she was aggressive and or that it's likely she attacked Tim Shepard. It was tricky.
I believe Mr. Lewis, although he fought the motion to suppress, he wanted Mr. Shepard's statement in evidence. I did not want to use that confession. Although Timothy says she ended up dead in his apartment, he says it's self-defense. It was all a bunch of BS.
I had the knife on my hand tight. She picked it up. She saw me.
It was Timothy's way of making himself look better than the reality was.
As the state did not put his confession on at that point in time, we had no way of really injecting the self-defense into the trial.
The defendant and his lawyer can't offer the statement themselves without taking the witness stand. If you're Chip Lewis, why in the world would you ever put Timothy Shepard on the stand? How is he going to explain any of it?
We start calling neighbors. Some of them testified to it, the burning of the smoking of the barbecue pit that seemed just abnormal and to go on and on and on. Some people said the smoke didn't smell quite right. The firefighter gave testimony that in the bathtub he saw what appeared to be a rack of ribs. And at no time did he ever conceive that that was the body of a young woman. The DNA analyst testified to it, finding Tanisha's DNA in the bone fragments, hair, and teeth that they found inside the apartment of Timothy Shepard. The forensic anthropologist said that there was a tool mark in the bone. It wasn't a natural phenomenon. Somebody had tried to cut that bone. As a mother, it was horrifying. Sadly, as a prosecutor, it gave me another piece of evidence.
At this point in the trial, Marie Prim has offered Tanisha's girlfriends to talk about her, how she went missing, the literal pieces of evidence of Tanisha's body. What still remains is what's going to happen with Quanell X.
The defense was saying he won't take the stand and tell what he knows, because in the streets there's a no snitch policy. So we don't think he'll speak up about what he knows.
Everybody's waiting to hear what happens.
Calling Quanell X to the stand was kind of hold your breath moment. Is he even going to cooperate with us?
Marie Prim was praying that I would keep my word and that I would not take the fifth, that I would testify. But I gave my word that I would fight for justice for Tanisha Stewart.
It was extremely powerful in the room with him. His ability to make you feel what he observed, it was very powerful testimony.
The jury was out for just 4 hours, which in my lifetime is not very long. And the jury came back with a guilty verdict.
I felt in my heart that they're going to convict him. But don't get your hopes up yet. Let's see what the jury says, see how much time they get him, how much time he really has to serve. Is my sister going to get her justice that she deserves?
During the guilt phase of the trial, we didn't really get to talk about the self-defense claim, but in punishment, Timothy Shepard wanted to try to demonstrate how this happened.
It was pretty apparent Chip was trying to talk him out of it, but when it comes down to it, the defendant gets to make the call, and he wanted to testify, and Chip was stuck having to put him on the stand.
If Timothy Shepard was going to testify, I wanted him to show the jurors what he did to Tynesha.
So he was able to get from behind the witness stand and actually show Marie Prim how he grabbed Tanisha that night.
You could feel it in the courtroom when he put his hands around my neck. I think it was powerful.
It is a product of excellent lawyering on the prosecution to get a defendant to show in front of the jury exactly what happened.
Timothy Shepard gave a confession. I was very surprised at the details that he gave me. He left to go get a saw to come dismember her body.
He talked about how he had taken some pliers to remove her teeth from her skull. He went through great lengths of trying to cover his tracks.
This is like some Jeffrey Dahmer type stuff.
When I said, and then you put her on the barbecue pit, he corrected me to tell me it was a smoker. That just showed how callous and cold of a human being he was. Why did he get rid of her body that way? So no one would ever find it, and he would never face the consequences for what he did.
They did not give him life, which was a maximum punishment. They gave him 99 years and a maximum fine.
Is it justice? No. She's still gone.
We who come from economically disadvantaged communities dream of a Tanisha Stewart because she could have been a light and a symbol to say to young African-American girls, in spite of, you still rise. We had lost someone of great significance.
There was a time when I thought I would never, ever have a conversation with Quanell X, that we would never be on the same side of the game. I opened my eyes, my heart, my mind, made me a better prosecutor.
It gave me hope that the relationship with my community, the Black community, and law enforcement could change for the common good of our community and our city.
I'm just sad that she didn't get to go be who she should be. Show us all.
She don't have anything. She's not here. She doesn't have any kids. She doesn't have any CDs out, music, no husband. She was right there. It was just beginning to take off. And it was snatched away. Because we didn't see the evil that lurked around us.
We want to think that we can see evil and spot it and thus avoid it. What I've learned in this job is that you can't ever see all the evil that there is in this world. If a man puts his hands on you one time, he's going to do it again. If you're dating someone like that, run. When you have a victim like Tanisha, everybody understands what's most important here.